Get ready, because here's your host, Tyson Mutrix.
Welcome back to the Guild Live Show. I am Tyson Mutrix, and today I've got a really good show. We're going to be talking about pressing pause. We're going to be talking about Gemini 3.0. That's going to be a really interesting one that just dropped. So I'm excited to talk about Gemini 3.0. Talking about never being satisfied. That's something that I think many attorneys and law firm owners experience that feeling. We're talking about online ordering. I promise I've got a twist on how it might apply to law firm owners, and then some hidden playbooks. So that's what we've got today. It's going to be a good one. All right, let's talk about pressing pause. And this comes from Sean Puri, Shaan. And Sean took a deliberate 2-week pause. Okay, so it took off 2 weeks, no business decisions, no hustling, really nothing work related, nothing. And it was intentional reflection. It was intentional rest. It was all just low stakes activity. There was no risk of any kind, no overexertion. It was just purely rest, nothing else. And it was really scheduled rest. And the way he put it was engineered rest. So naps, walks, unstructured water thinking is what he called it. And he just really let his mind wander. Really kind of an interesting concept. The mind wandering, I like to do this exercise sometimes where I will just sit there and I will let, like a lot of times you'll shut down a thought where you'll be thinking about something and you'll be like, no, I need to focus on this. I will let it just kind of flow and see where it goes. It's a really cool way of coming up with new ideas and being creative. And that's what it kind of reminds me of, is just letting your mind go. And we're so restricted with that. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun, actually. And if you really want to add a level to this, do it before you go to sleep. And I know that may seem counterintuitive, because you might want to, you're like, oh, well, I want to go to sleep, so I'm going to shut down all these thoughts. Your dreams will be wild, I promise you. If you just kind of let your mind go, just let it go. I wouldn't recommend always doing it, because it can keep you up, but it is one of those things where if you've got a little bit extra time, go to bed a little early, do it. But back to Sean Puri's experiment, I will call it. And he talked about how much this break that he had, it really unblocked his clarity. I thought that was really cool. His creativity opened up quite a bit, which I'm not surprised by at all. And another thing is better decision making. Okay, so better decision making. So disengaging allowed him to make better decisions. And I think that most of us think, well, we got to be locked in all the time, so we have all the information, and I'm always tapped in, and that way I can make better decision making. He found that it was the opposite. And to me, it seems like it could be a really good tool for mental health, for leadership, for long-term productivity for you. So here's where some of the key takeaways. Rest is strategic. So taking time off isn't just recovery. It can actually generate better ideas. Okay. So it's a strategic tool that you can use. Okay. And so instead of grinding all the time, getting less sleep, and I think we all know that getting more sleep, there's way more benefits to that than staying up late working. But when you're in the moment, when you're in the grind, it can be hard to do that, right? Because you're like, I've got to do all this stuff. I got all these things done. I've got to get the kids to soccer practice. Then we got to do this. I've got to do that. Taking the time for strategic rest is important. Mental clarity, another takeaway. Mental clarity comes from stillness. Ooh, that's a tough one for me. Without constant doing, your brain is free to think deeply and creatively. This is hard for me. to be still and just do nothing. I remember Jim asked me a while ago, it's been a couple years, but he said, "When's the last time you just sat in silence?" I couldn't even begin to tell him, the last time that I just sat there and done nothing and been still. It's a really hard thing for me to do. So for me to tell you, you should be doing it, I'd be a hypocrite. I'm just telling you what Sean Puri says to do, and Sean Puri says it's a good idea. It probably is a good idea. Okay. Another thing, another key takeaway: intentional rest improves leadership. So rest can make you a better decision maker and more resilient. So that's where the leadership part of it comes in, where you're more resilient, but you're also making better decisions. So I think that does make you a better leader. And then pause to think about long-term impact, not just short-term games. So whenever you're doing this, think about, you know, all right, what's the long term? I was talking about this the other day. I think I was at my grandma's 80th birthday party, and I was talking. I don't remember who I was talking to actually. It was a family member, but I was talking about how Japanese companies think in 200 years as opposed to like 10-year increments. I think that's a really fascinating thing. But when you think about it like that, it's very calming to me where, oh, you know, um, the things that we're trying to accomplish in 10 years, they really don't matter that much. But if you think about 200 years, that's that's really deep thinking. And it allows you to be a little bit more intentional and a lot less extreme with your decision making. Because if you think I've got to get this thing done by next week versus, okay, what's the mission? Where do we want to be in 200 years? It makes that decision that seems very stressful in the moment far less stressful, right? The thing I do right now that's going to affect us in the next week, not super important, but how does this decision affect us in 200 years? In 200 years, we're not even going to remember. No one. Well, depending on the advances of AI, we all might be alive in 200 years. I don't know, but the odds are we're not going to be alive in 200 years. So how's this going to affect other people in 200 years? So it changes the stress dynamic quite a bit. So I think these are pretty good, a fun little takeaway from Sean Pure. I think it's a fun little exercise. I don't know if I could take 2 weeks off. I don't know if I could just to do nothing but think. That is a very extreme thing to do, but you know what? Who knows? Maybe I will give it a try sometime. So I can't promise that I will, but it's one of those things where I think it's a cool little thing. I do think it's a fun um, a fun little exercise to try if we can. But all right, let's get into the next story. Gemini 3.0. And I thought it would be kind of fun is instead of saying, here's what Gemini 3.0 is going to be, I wanted to read off some posts from people and to let you know like what they're saying. And so here is this summary. So Google DeepMind unveils Gemini 3.0 with superior reasoning and multimodal capabilities. Google DeepMind launched 3.0 on November 18th, 2025, which was just yesterday, following intense speculation from insider social media posts and Polymarket odds reaching 97%. So Gemini 3.0 just refactored. So this is the first post. Gemini 3.0 just refactored my entire code base in one call, 25 total invocations, 3,000 plus new lines, 12 brand new files. It modularized everything, broke up monoliths, cleaned up spaghetti. None of it worked. Boy, but boy, was it beautiful. So I find that one to be my favorite of all of them. That one's a pretty fun one. The it's just what that's I love the part. None of it worked, but boy was it beautiful. That part is really really funny. The next thing, Gemini 3.0 one-shotted this awesome website. It's over for front end devs. And I do what I'm going to try to do is try to put this one on the screen. I did not send this to Amy in advance, so it's not something that she can put on the screen for me. Sorry about that, Amy. But um, let's see if I can put this up here and show it to the people. Let's see. Here we go. Let's see. And this is the only time that I'm going to be running things today. So lucky for you all. I need to share this tab instead. Here we go. And boom. Let's start over. Let's just play this real quick. We're not going to play the whole thing, just part of it. And for those of you that are just listening, by the way, so I guess I should say this too. There is what they did was they it's a video game. They actually had them do a video game overview, and so they must have prompted it to do this and to just create this. So if you are we'll probably do for the podcast, we'll probably cut this part out so that you're not worried about what you're not seeing. So this will just be for the video people. We'll just cut all this part out for the people that are just listening via audio. But I'll keep playing here. Kind of skip ahead because it's just a bunch of storylines here. I do find it really interesting because it's for Grand Theft Auto 6, I think is what that one is. And I think it's funny because they just announced that the date just got pushed back on that one recently. But the person in this post claims that they did this in one shot. And it's pretty, if that is true, that's pretty good. That's something that's really good. There's another one here. Stop sharing. Yeah, Gemini 3.0 is going to leave a lot of front end devs jobless, and they're showing a website. Born to Create, powered by AI, and there's a website that they do. I vibe coded this little cute retro camera app with Gemini 3.0 in just one convo. Try it yourself. And a lot of people talking about things that they built, like apps and websites, all of that sort of thing. I can't wait to try it. Make a CapCut in Gemini 3.0 in 239 seconds, ? And with AI, ! It's Gemini Cut crazy is what it is. It's D-Day, Gemini 3.0 gonna cook. So announcing design, a new rep experience focused on beautiful UIs. The first nonstop AI design experience powered by Gemini 3.0. So I have heard only fantastic things about Gemini. That's this might be the game changer that we have all been looking for. I have been a little bit bored with AI news over the last month. I'd say there have not been, I feel like for a while, lots of big things coming out of AI, and then it's slowed down. This was the big thing that we've all been waiting on for a while. So this is pretty cool. I can't wait to check it out. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. So can't wait to check it out. But all right, let's get into our next story. Never Satisfied. This is from Arthur Brooks, and this is where he was talking about on the Diary of a CEO podcast, which I think is just fantastic. I really do like that show. But he discusses why people often feel unsatisfied. So another way he put it was that they're never satisfied. And that's especially true when they've made it, quote unquote, made it. And if you think about how many of you that you're listening to this right now, or if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this in the guild, how you've like, just think about where you are right now and think about, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, however long you've been running your law firm. If you thought back then that you'd be where you are now, okay, and I'm guessing most of you have have excelled past where you thought you'd be, yet you're still not satisfied. And it's a really, really common thing. Um, and he talks about how those fleeting pleasures don't lead to long-term happiness. And he talks about how instead satisfaction comes from deeply rooted in scalable areas of life. I think that's a really cool concept. So by focusing on meaningful goals, not just external achievements like wealth or status. Okay. That's why people talk about number of employees that they have. I don't care. I do not care. I could not care less about the number of employees that you have. They talk about revenue. Couldn't care less about your revenue. Really couldn't. If you are making zero profit, but massive revenue, you've got a terrible job, is what you have. You have an awful job. Those don't matter. Okay. So if you instead tell me that you have been representing the indigent for the last 10 years and you've gotten 15 acquittals or just 2 acquittals, I don't care. Whatever. That's way more impressive to me than saying that you've made $1 billion. And if you made $0 in profit, then I don't care. It doesn't matter. So that's where it's these more meaningful goals. I think the meaningful goals will, if we can find a way to have more meaningful goals in the firm, it's going to push us more, and we'll actually make more in revenues by doing that. So I think that's one of those things where if we focus so much on and profits, by the way, so not really revenue, but profit, by focusing on those things that are more meaningful, I think it will lead to more of the things that we think that we want. But by doing that, focus on those more meaningful things, we can develop more of that emotional resilience. That's what he talks about, and more long-term contentment, which is one of the things that many of us are hoping for. Is we're wanting that just to be content. That the ability just to take a second, breathe, and be like, oh, this is good. You know what I mean? Just stopping and smelling the roses. Another way of looking at it. So some of the key takeaways from this: true lasting happiness is less about the monetary highs and more about enduring meaningful connections. The hedonic treadmill, he calls it, makes us constantly chase more because we adapt quickly to our gains. All right. So the reason why we continually are unsatisfied is that we are adapting so fast to what we're doing and our success that we're having, that we're continually, okay, got to push for more, got to push for more, got to push for more. It's ingrained in us. So don't feel guilty for it. It's ingrained in us. The 4 pillars, and I think some of you might have been wanting to know this part. Like, what are the things that we should be focusing on? What are the pillars of that? And he talks about 4 pillars. Faith. This is not going to be a surprise to many of you. Faith, family, friendship, and service to others. Okay. Faith, family, friendship, service. Okay. These are scalable, he says, and they're foundational sources of long-term fulfillment. So put all of your focus on those, right? That's where you should be focusing your time. And then external goals: money, fame, status. Those should be a means and not an ends. So you should be using those things, money, fame, status, to help build the faith, family, friendship, service part of it. And so those should not be an ends. Those should be the means. And they work best when connected to a deeper purpose. So tying in the 4 pillars with money, fame, and status, tying those together to create sort of a cycle that is what works best. Okay. All right. That is the next enough of that story. Let's get into online ordering. Okay. So this is from Harvard Business Review. This is a new article. It's just from a couple days ago. And they talk about the name of it is Improving Substitutions in Online Ordering. I just really like Harvard Business Review articles. They do a really good job. They go really, really deep. And in this one, they argue that Bad substitutions are more than just annoying. They damage customer trust, erode profits, and slow the growth of online ordering. The authors highlight a common real-world problem in online grocery ordering. I'm giving you the summary of the article. Customers get wildly inappropriate substitutes. Their research points on three strategic levers to improve substitution outcomes. All right, so I want you to think about if you do you do online ordering. When I'm talking about specifically, not like an Amazon order, I'm talking about more like you're getting like a food delivery or a grocery delivery, and you get a substitution. I don't. There are Walmart does this where they will substitute something, and you will have a limited amount of time to accept it, and if you don't, they'll just substitute it. I've seen that also with DoorDash and Instacart, where they'll sometimes do best option, something like that. And the substitute is wildly different. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you ordered some sort of a black bean burger. Okay, that's what you ordered. Black bean burger. It's all veggies. Okay, and then the substitute was like hamburger. Like that's obviously an insane substitute if you think about it's one's vegetables, one's actually meat. Okay, it sounds similar, hamburger, but it's it's completely different. It's just a wild example, but it does talk about like how pissed off you like think about how pissed off you might be if that happens. Or let me give you I'll just make up an example. Let's say you were to order corn dogs or something like that, and then instead they give you hot dog buns. So they're not, I mean, sure, they're related to hot dogs in some way, but it's one is got the meat and the pancake doughy substance on the outside that you can kind of eat it on a stick, and the other one's just like it's just bread. It's just that you're not going to do anything with it except you need an actual hot dog or you need something else for it. So it's something that will definitely erode trust and really frustrate people. And so if you relate this to a law firm, okay, you might be wondering, like, where is he going with this? Uh, it really comes down to availability, personalization, and efficiency. Is really what it comes down to. Think about it. So think about availability. So think about services. Okay. So when it comes to grocery and online ordering, it's about better inventory forecasting and management. And that allows you to reduce how often substitutions are needed. Okay. Think about it when it comes to availability of your legal resources. On some files, you might have more time to do certain things on it that you'd want to do on a file, but because you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have the team members or the tools, you're not able to do those things. So you don't have the availability. Okay. And there are sometimes when it comes to personalization, there are sometimes where a client might want you to do certain things on a file that you don't typically do. They want you to sort of personalize things for their particular case or their particular matter. And I'm talking about anywhere from could be personal injury or it could be a will that you're drafting, right? It could be a will and they want it to be more specialized and they don't really want to go through your process. Well, in that situation for personalization, I want you to think about use models to understand what your clientele might want, how they might want things proposed or the quote unquote substitutions. Think about it from that angle. What substitutions might they want? And then have those as available options so that whenever they request those things, it's already kind of built into your process. And so they feel like they're getting a more personalized service when in reality, it's just part of your process. You know, you have built this in where they feel like they are getting this tailor-made, um, you know, service. And when in reality, you're just kind of checking boxes, right? And then the last part, efficiency. So because of that, because you're going to build these in, you're going to want to optimize these quote unquote substitutions. So the substitution process, you're going to want to make sure you optimize that from an operational standpoint, so that the substitution costs, because there are costs to personalization and substitution, right? There are costs to that, but you want to make sure that you optimize those so that that cost is less, and that so that there's less friction in the process. Okay, so it really comes out, like I said, availability. So do you have the tools, the resources, the team members for this? Do you have these? Have you anticipated the personalization that your clientele might want, and then also have you optimized this? Now that you know, you've thought about it, have you optimized your process for it? Have you built out those check boxes? Boom. Okay, I know that my clients may want this. Okay, let's check this box here, and then these automations are created. Kind of think of the process that way, and so that's where this learning from other industries, for example, like online ordering, can help us when it comes to providing these services. Online ordering, I think most people might look at an article like online ordering and think, what's that have to do with law firms? But we can take a lot of those things and then apply them to law firms to improve many of our offerings and improve the service that we provide our clients. So that's all I have for that one. And then let's get into the last story. And this is the hidden playbook. Before I do want to say just good luck to Nate, the lawyer. He's having, as we speak, I think, having a brain surgery. He's got a tumor. He's someone that's got a pretty big YouTube following. So at Nate the lawyer, but he covers a variety of things, broad spectrum. He kind of gets political sometimes, but he does cover things really cool on YouTube. So I think I definitely recommend that you check him out. He's also on all the other social media platforms, but he found out he had a tumor on Sunday and he's in surgery today. So good luck to Nate the lawyer. But all right, let's get to the last story though. Hidden playbooks. And this is from the Marketing Against the Grain podcast. And what they talk about in this podcast, it's with guest Erica Winger, and they talk about dig into what some companies actually talked with guest Erica Winger to dig into what makes some companies actually win in today's crowded, fast-moving tech landscape. They cover topics like why distribution has become the new competitive moat, the power of building in public and nurturing cult-like communities, and which AI tools are overhyped versus ones worth your attention. One of the key quotes from this is, "What matters is that you're building something people want. The VCs will come once they see that there is something exciting." So this, when it comes to the tech world, I do find it very fascinating how, and this is when you look at the Gemini 3.0, like you saw the comments, and then you see kind of hear like an episode like this where they're still talking about VCs and investing in software, all this kind of stuff, but the other side's like, that market is dead. I do find that contrast really interesting, and those are just a week apart. They're just a week apart when it comes to things. But I find the building in public thing very interesting, and it's hard for me to do because I want everything. I want this like polished product to present to people, and I think the reality is people like to see you building things in public and seeing how things are happening. I think that's, I mean, I know I do. I like to watch the things, but it's when you're in that seat, it's kind of hard to do that sometimes. But they do talk about that. So sharing process transparently and forming tight communities creates advocacy and trust. So they go out and advocate for you. So as you're building this thing out in public, and it does force you to be more vulnerable. People tend to like you more, and they tend to be more, I think they're more forgiving, but they also tend to advocate for you a little bit more. This is something I don't think we talk about enough, and I think we should talk about talk about more, is the product market fit. And they talk about how that's still the most important thing. You have to look at that first. If you are, let's go immigration firm. It might make a lot of sense for you to be an immigration firm in Miami, but it may not be so important in a place like, I'll pick a small town in Mexico, Missouri, right? Where you have a couple thousand people. It may not make a whole lot of sense to be an immigration attorney in that town. Product market fit don't make sense. So just because you want to be a certain type of lawyer doesn't mean you should probably do it in that town. So you might need to focus on another town or market in another town. So keep that in mind. But and they talk about before scaling or chasing growth, you have to ensure that you're solving something people actually want. A lot of people aren't going to want an immigration attorney in Mexico, Missouri. They're just not. That's just the reality. Okay. Growth loops. I love this idea. And then moat building. Winning companies create sustainable loops and see distribution as a lasting advantage. So community, referrals, and then users is the way they use it. So community, referrals, clients, and then cycles. Community, referrals, clients. Community, referrals, clients. That's really cool. I'm big on loops. Loops are really like feedback loops. Those are great when it comes to your firms, but loops of any kind, those are what gets you rolling. Distribution is greater than product alone. This is interesting. So winning companies focus on how they get the product into users' hands and grow momentum, not just the product features. This is such a valuable lesson. This should be the entire episode should have been about that, because it does not matter if you're a great lawyer if you can't get into if you can't get the clients. That's the reality of it. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. You still have to be a very good lawyer, but the very good lawyers or just the mediocre lawyers are going to outcompete you if they can help market you. That is the reality of the situation. They're going to have a lot more clients than you. They're going to have a lot more money than you because you're not getting in front of them. Your skills matter, but you've got to get the clients. Okay. So distribution is greater than your product. It's just the reality of what it is. Okay. So you got to start with marketing. That's the reality. You got to start with the marketing and then build from there. So that's all I have today. I've got to get to our daily huddle. So have a wonderful week, everybody. We will be seeing you later. Amy, thank you again for running the boards. Really, really appreciate it. Nate the lawyer, good luck to you, buddy. See you, buddy.